Thank you. This is a second public meeting tonight on 21 Phillip Street. It's a zoning bylaw amendment for temporary zoning. It's required by the Planning Act to afford any person an opportunity to make representation with respect to a proposed zoning bylaw amendment for a temporary use bylaw on the lands located at 21 Phillip Street. If I could share with you, we certainly have a permanent bylaws to commercial use on residential properties. This is now a piece that the council has put together to ask if we can use a temporary zoning bylaw in place of the permanent bylaw of no commercial use. I'll introduce our manager of planning services, Michelle. I thought you'd get to do both tonight, so you've had a bit of a rest. So, all right. So please provide the background information, the proposal, and presenting the draft bylaw.
So thank you, Your Worship. Yes, so as Your Worship mentioned, we are here for a public meeting for the draft temporary use bylaw for 21 Phillip Street. So on September 18th, 2025, a complete application was submitted by Joy Dottie for official plan and zoning bylaw amendment applications to permit swimming lessons as a home occupation at 21 Phillip Street. So we went through the process, the application, there was a public meeting, and council considered the application and ended up refusing the requests, the requested amendments, and directed staff to come to prepare a report introducing a temporary use bylaw for council's consideration to allow for the provision of backyard swimming lessons as a home occupation on the subject lands. So staff were directed to bring forward a temporary use bylaw for council's consideration. So council at this time will have the ability to make a decision about whether or not to pass a temporary use bylaw and what conditions to impose on said temporary use bylaw.
Perfect.
So what is a temporary use bylaw? So a temporary use bylaw is a tool in the Planning Act that allows for the temporary use of land, building, or structures for uses that are otherwise prohibited by the zoning bylaw. So it allows you to have that use for a period of time of up to 3 years. And that time period after that, council has the ability to do extensions of up to 3 years. There's no limit on the number of extensions council can choose to do. But the Planning Act does impose that 3-year limit, and it is quite strict. So so council doesn't have the ability to put a longer time frame on it. And if council wished to allow it in perpetuity, that would be a standard zoning bylaw amendment, or in this case, also an official plan amendment would be required. So the subject lands here are, I'll go through this part quite quickly because we're all quite familiar. They're just here on the south side of Phillip Street. They have the pool in the backyard. They're surrounded by residential uses, and also there is to the north, there's the YMCA, there's the Senior Center, there's Central Elgin Collegiate Institute, and to the east is St. Anne's Catholic Elementary School. So the subject lands are designated residential in the official plan. They're zoned in the first residential zone. So that typically wouldn't allow for any sort of commercial type uses, but we do have home occupation provisions in the official plan and the zoning bylaw, which do allow for individuals to operate businesses from within their home with certain requirements in both the official plan and the zoning bylaw, that it must be carried on by the occupant of the home. It has to be incidental. There can't be exterior evidence. Sort of limited traffic to the homes associated with it. There can't be any selling of goods, and you can't really extend your building to allow for that. The zoning has very similar provisions, which are outlined here. I'm not going to go through them at length because we've gone through them at length previously. But effectively, the previous application we saw looked at variances or amending the official plan and zoning to allow for these swimming lessons as a home occupation, which were exterior to the home, and sort of were considered beyond the scope of what would typically be a home occupation. I have reached out to Ms. Dottie about her requested conditions for a temporary use bylaw, which are outlined here. Ms. Dottie has expressed her desire for longer than 3 years, but as I noted, council does not have the ability to pass a temporary use bylaw for longer than 3 years. But she's also requested the removal of the removal of the 3-year time frame, permission to teach swimming lessons Monday to Thursday, beginning no earlier than 8:30 in the morning, with exceptions for Fridays should there be inclement weather. Classes being a 5-to-2 ratio, or in some instances a 6-to-2 ratio, and completing lessons by 6 p.m. I would say in her previous application, she indicated that she completed lessons by 7 p.m., so this is a reduction of 1 hour. And also wants to have leisure time with family and friends outside of this time, which the bylaw doesn't take issue with. And then she also has, through this temporary use bylaw, requested leadership courses, which leadership courses weren't something that were part of the initial application. They may have a higher ratio. The ratio wasn't stated. And also swimming classes would be from mid-June to mid-September, and I believe her intention for the leadership classes is a similar timeframe. I would also indicate that in this requested temporary use bylaw, there is a second instructor, which is a second employee, which is different from what we had with the official plan and zoning bylaw amendment, where there were no variances requested to allow for someone to be an instructor who does not primarily reside at the dwelling. So Ms. Dottie has indicated that this second instructor may not reside at the dwelling. So that would also be a change. So I've shown here the draft bylaw reflecting the request from Ms. Dottie. So it would involve updating the map to show the temporary use zone, which we demarcate with the T, it would expire in 2029. That's the longest council can consider. I know she has requested no expiration, but there's no ability to do that. Similarly, this draft bylaw shows her conditions of up to 6 students per lesson for swimming. I should say while we can put conditions in the temporary use bylaw, we can't put as detailed of conditions of, for an infant class having set ratios, so we have to go with the higher ratio here. And also the addition of a provision to allow an individual to perform the home occupation who doesn't regularly reside at the dwelling, allowing for lessons from Monday to Thursday between 8:30 and 6 o'clock, with lessons permitted on Fridays if canceled due to weather on Monday to Thursday for the months of June to September. I would say that it's really challenging to enforce a provision related to allowing the lessons for an additional day due to weather. So staff you'll see later on in the presentation, the staff proposed bylaw, which reflects some of these provisions. And then also Ms. Dottie has requested the additional the additional permitted use of leadership courses, which would run Monday to Thursday between the hours of 8:30 and 6 p.m. I believe she's also would request the June to September timeframe on that, but that would need to be confirmed. And then just updating the general bylaw map. At the time there was a bylaw consolidation. So there's just the bylaw maps that would apply. We have received some feedback. I would say that at the March 2nd council meeting, members advised that support for a temporary use bylaw was based on suggested compromises and not the new requests that were previously mentioned in the report. And then we did receive 3 written comments. One neighbor wrote in support saying that the school adjacent to where they live was louder than the temporary use bylaw, or louder than the swimming lessons. Another wrote indicating continued concerns and requesting the temporary use bylaw being rejected, looking for shorter time periods ending at 4 and reduced ratios. Similarly, another neighbor wrote expressing similar concerns, looking for limits to 2 years, with Joy Dottie as the only instructor, and again, ending lessons for 4 p.m. with a limited class size of 3 to 4 per lesson. So staff have tried to come forward with a balanced temporary use bylaw for council to consider, taking in the request from Ms. Dottie, similarly also taking in the feedback received from the neighbors from the previous discussions, and also what is implementable based on an actual zoning bylaw. So very open to feedback on what council would like to see in this bylaw, because again, this bylaw, staff indicated in our previous report that it would be challenging for staff to support a temporary use bylaw, but what we're bringing forward is sort of everything we've heard and trying to prepare the best bylaw for council to reflect the intent, make something that's compatible with the neighbors. So what staff are suggesting is limiting the temporary use bylaw to a maximum of 2 years. This is because it accounts for the additional year waiting for a submission of applications from when the initial zoning notice was issued. Limiting the home occupation to swimming lessons because this was what was in the initial applications. Limiting the provision of lessons to the person who regularly resides at the dwelling unit because this was, again, also what was in the initial applications. Limiting lessons to 3 students per lesson just on account of it being 1 instructor. And limiting the provision of swimming lessons from Monday to Thursday from 8:30 till 5, allowing that extra hour for individuals beyond 4 o'clock. We did hear some feedback about concerns from people who are working Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 jobs, and also Fridays from 8:30 till 12. This because it's really challenging for our bylaw enforcement if we were to limit it to only Fridays where you have bad weather, et cetera, or 1 Friday a month or something to that effect. So here's the draft bylaw. So it would again include creating that schedule with the T resident or first residential special provision zone. The bylaw would expire 2 years from the date that it was passed by council. And then it would allow for the provision of swimming lessons as a backyard pool as a home occupation as an additional permitted use, subject to limitations of 3 students per lesson, providing swimming lessons being limited to the person who regularly resides in the dwelling unit, which is already in the bylaw, but it's something that we'd want to clarify just through this. And also lessons being from Monday to Thursday from 8:30 to 5 and Fridays from 8:30 to 12. And then just also updating our general map at such time that the bylaw is consolidated. And that concludes staff presentation. I believe Ms. Dottie also has a presentation.
Okay. I'm going to ask the clerk one question first, and then we'll have Ms. Dottie. And I know we've already heard from Michelle that there are some submissions. Madam Clerk, did that match your records?
Yes, Your Worship. So just for the record, Dean Padden of 25 Phillips Street submitted a letter in support of the zoning bylaw amendment. Christopher Smith and Christine Flesher of 18 Ryerson requested, excuse me, that council reject the proposed bylaw, but should council approve it, to impose a limit of 2 years, restrict hours from 9 till 4 from Monday to Thursday, and set a class ratio of 1 to 3 with only the property owners teaching. And then John and Jess Mazzeros of 6 Ryerson Place also requesting limitations, maximum 2 years, class instruction by property owner, class size of 3 to 4 children, class hours from 8:30 to 4, Monday to Friday, and no further extensions, renewals, expansion of services, or staffing.
Okay. Ms. Dottie, presentation from you. Oh, you're on.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak again. I'd like to clarify several key points and address a number of inaccuracies that have influenced this discussion. I'm here to respond to the comments recently submitted by the Mazzeros family, which I received only today in an email at 11:45 that I did not even was aware that it was there until 3 o'clock. At the end of March, when I added the city to my insurance, thank you, Jeff Kohler, for giving me clarification of why you felt it was important for the city to be included on my insurance. If that had been provided to me initially, I would have had no issue adding the city. I proactively requested that my file be reviewed to confirm that nothing further was required. I was advised by Planning Department that this would be looked into, and as yet I've not received any follow-up. I reasonably assumed that everything is order until I got this letter today. I'd like to address some of the things that were in the letter. Mr. Mazzeros makes reference to the anonymous letter he sent in 2020 saying that I was not approachable or any, his wording, I can't remember exactly what it was. I approached the neighbor that I thought had written the letter, and then any neighbors that lived in sequence to me on Phillip Street, and found out that they were all in favor. So I thought I was good to go. It's not that I was ignoring anybody's comment. If he had been more forthcoming and not been anonymous and come and knocked on my door, we could have had a conversation. From the outset, I've made genuine good faith efforts to work collaboratively with my neighbors. I invited one neighbor into my home and asked if she and her husband would be willing to act as mediators. She said yes. I followed up multiple times and was ultimately informed that John was not interested. Given this, I was both surprised and disappointed on November 10th to learn who else had submitted complaints. Since that time, 3 additional neighbors have joined the dispute. It's particularly disheartening that 2 of these families have previously placed their trust in me and used my services. With respect to the concerns raised, I would like to correct several inaccuracies. The claim that activities are conducted 7 days per week is incorrect. It has also been stated that I teach from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. However, I've never started before 8:30 and only do so on rare occasions to support students who require additional reassurance. The latest I teach is 7 p.m. I am not bionic. These statements significantly overstate the scope and impact of my operations. He also indicated that his home, number 6 and number 18 Ryerson, are the only ones sorry, I can't read my own writing. I have neighbors at 19 and 23 that they're the only ones impacted. I have neighbors who live beside me at 19 and number 23, so their yards are close to my yard as well, who have absolutely no issue. There's also a reference to antagonizing dogs. I'm at a loss to see how this could occur as my backyard is fully enclosed by a 6-foot wooden fence. In addition, the corner of my yard adjoining the Mazzeros property is occupied by an 8x10 metal shed fitted tightly into that space, creating a further physical barrier. I also take issue with the assertion regarding social media attacks. I have consistently expressed a willingness to work cooperatively and respectfully with my neighbors and have never publicly identified or named anyone. The names referenced were disclosed during the November 10th meeting and not by me. While John Mazzeros has indicated a willingness to collaborate, I have never been approached by him. Regarding parking, participants are clearly instructed to park at CECI school and walk across the field. Typically, 1 or 2 individuals during an entire session may park at the front of my home or in my driveway, only when they have mobility difficulties. In contrast, I have observed that activity originating from the Mazzeros residence frequently involves multiple vehicles, sometimes up to 6 at a time, which he indicated in his own letter. There have also been instances where they use the driveway at number 4 due to the large volume of cars at their home. I have never complained. There are times, many times actually, where they have a car even parked on their front lawn. I'd also like to add that cameras have been installed at my home to monitor the comings and goings of participants to ensure compliance. I have never seen anyone arriving at my home off of Ryerson Place. Finally, it should be noted that concerns about neighborhood impact are not limited to my property. Mr. Mazzeros has addressed the regular operation of power tools, including the frequent use of a saw in connection with his home woodworking business, which also generates noise. He watches sporting events from his back patio up to and including after midnight with an accelerated volume. He's been known to have parties till 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. I have never complained. He has been known to be in his backyard loudly expressing profanities. Some of my neighbors have young children who are exposed to this. I would also like to address an additional point of concern. It's been suggested that Brittany, who is my daughter, would take over the business upon my retirement. Not certain where this information originated, as this has never been planned, discussed, or communicated with her or myself. This assertion is entirely unfounded and should not be considered as part of this matter. My proposal is reasonable, measured, and intentionally designed to respect the surrounding neighborhood. I'm requesting permission to operate Monday through Thursday, concluding at 6 p.m., specifically to preserve evenings for neighbors and to enjoy their outdoor spaces. I have many families who work until 5 o'clock, and it could be difficult for them to get there prior to that time. Fridays are only used and very occasionally and strictly as a contingency for weather-related cancellations when necessary to support a child's progress. Since the ratio is as low as it is, this is rarely required. Despite my consistent efforts to be flexible and considerate, this process has placed a significant financial and personal strain on me. I've also been advised that I'd be required to reapply after 3 years, with 2025 counting as year one, introducing further uncertainty into an already challenging situation. In light of these circumstances, I'm respectfully requesting a fair and practical resolution. Permission to continue teaching until my retirement, which could be this year. I don't know how this old body, how much longer it's going to last. And there would not be a transfer to anyone. Permission to continue teaching until the sale of my home. This request reflects not only the stability I need to operate responsibly, but also the continuity that families rely on and have come to expect in my 35 years of teaching there. Finally, I respectfully ask that this matter be resolved by the end of April 2026, if possible. I traditionally begin lesson registrations on May 1st, and I've been receiving inquiries from parents since December. These families are waiting for clarity, and I would like to provide them with a definitive and responsible answer. I believe my proposal is balanced, responsible, and considerate of all parties. I remain committed to being a respectful neighbor and a responsible member of the community, and I respectfully ask for your support in reaching a fair and reasonable resolution. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much. We'll first of all move next to questions from council on the proposed changes or the suggestions. I'm going to try and keep reminding us that we're talking about changes to a temporary zoning bylaw. We all love swimming, but that's not the topic as much as it is home business and a temporary zoning bylaw. So, council first. Questions from council. Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thanks, Ms. Dottie, for your presentation, and to Michelle for your presentation as well. We're talking about a home-based business, and in my business, I have chatted with a number of, one in particular, one homeowner that wanted to come to St. Thomas and purchase a property and open up a small business in their home. And on a quick call, thanks to Michelle and her team for providing me with the information, it was outright denied. If you wanted to open up a small business of dog grooming, for example, maybe bringing in 2 or 3 dogs a week to do dog grooming, that is not allowed at all under the home occupation bylaw. We actually, in our bylaw, specifically outlaw, if you want to call it that, barber shops, hair salons, engineering, surveyors, physicians, surgeons, psychiatrists, dentists, lawyers, chiropractors, osteopaths, accountants, bookkeepers, photographers, and real estate and insurance. It makes me wonder what is actually allowed under a home occupation. In our downtown, we encourage small businesses to start out small and then maybe bring their business downtown. But under the current bylaw, I'm not sure where and how you would even do that, opening up a small operation in your basement. But what we're talking about here is a full-fledged commercial operation in my mind. This is not a small business, and Michelle has outlined the 8 different points of what is defined under home occupation. And what's happening here on Phillip Street does not qualify or meet any of those requirements. So if you were to go on to Google Maps and identify how many businesses are identified on Google Maps as operating a small business within their home, we could basically, under the way we're handling this now, shut down every one of them. And I'd hate to see that happen. But under the official plan, it goes on to talk about home occupations and limiting the number of people coming to the business. I think by moving in this direction, we're opening up a bit of can of worms and setting a bit of a precedent that how many more occupations are going to then apply to us to have their business operating, whether it be woodworking or mechanics or tire changing or oil changing, in order to operate out of their home. Granted, it's $4,500 to make an official plan and bylaw request. It may cause a few people to say, I'm not going to bother with that. I'll just carry on until somebody complains. And I'd hate to see another complaint come forward. But the overall reason that this complaint came forward is noise. And I haven't heard any discussions about noise at all in any of the presentations or in the temporary bylaw we're talking about. Personally, I'm not sure that I'd want to back onto a property where these kind of activities are happening. You expect people to go to work at 8 and come home at 5, and these things are not going to be happening while I'm at home. But there's lots of people that are retired, living in a community, expecting to be in a residential community. This is a commercial operation in my mind that is operating here. I chatted with Southwest Public Health in regards to pools and what is the requirement for commercial pools. They have to be inspected. And again, I haven't heard any discussions about these pools being inspected. If we're operating the Y, for example, the pools are inspected to make sure that they're operating consistently and properly and healthfully. Healthfully, is that the right word? And anyway, but I'm not aware of any of that happening. So I'm a little worried and concerned that we're setting a precedent here that I don't agree with. And in order for us to maintain our official plan and our bylaw, the way it's set up right now under home occupation, this is a far cry from what we're talking about. I'd rather see these lessons occurring in a public pool like the Y or another, the JC pool, whatever it happens to be. I think that would be the better spot than in somebody's backyard. But those are just my thoughts on I'd rather adhere to our official plan and our bylaws. Thank you.
Thank you. Further questions? Sure. Can you use a microphone, please, so we can make sure we're catching you? Thank you.
To me, commercial is 12 months out of the year. This is 3 months out of the year. I have not addressed the noise because I addressed that in November with multiple parents speaking at that time. Unfortunately, I had some parents here tonight that had brought little ones with them that had to leave because it's bedtime. We didn't know that we were going to be second on the agenda, and that's fine. We had to wait our turn. But I'm sure these parents who bring their children there will tell you that it is not noisy when lessons are going on. It is a controlled environment. There's more noise coming out of my backyard if my grandkids are out there with their friends.
Go ahead, Councillor Taylor.
But if I'm not mistaken, the original complaint was a noise complaint, was it not? And that's where I have not heard anything being addressed about noise. So
If I can speak on behalf of Michelle and let you do it too. No, the conclusion here is a home-based business operating outside of the house. That's what the zoning bylaw was made for, our overall zoning bylaw. And the temporary zoning bylaw is to try and find a way to have a small exemption to that. So that's what we're here on this public meeting talking about. I'll go to Michelle next, then Joy, if you have something.
Yeah, so through your worship to Councillor Taylor, the issue of noise is, it's very much a concern. It's one of the factors that was reviewed considerably in the official plan and zoning bylaw amendment applications. It was one of the reasons why planning recommended refusal of those applications because, there were concerns about noise and this was happening outside and it exceeded what one would expect for a home occupation. Those concerns, definitely planning still has those concerns. We have just, through this temporary use bylaw, tried to respond to sort of try and come up with something that is a temporary use bylaw for council to consider that helps to mitigate that as much as possible through reduction in the number of students and some limits to the hours. So noise is still very much a concern and something to be considered in this application.
Further questions from council. Councillor Rymal. Sorry, Joy, did you have something else? Did I cut you off? It's okay. Got it. Go.
I think too, from a council perspective, we just heard in the previous um, planning information, people concerned about their backyards, and you see some of the, what they call the rear lotting streetscape, where the backyards are very, very tiny, and about noise and privacy and about concerns with people. And I think we need to look at the bigger picture, and this is allowing a precedent, as Councillor Taylor says, against the official plan. And we're to have an exception to an occupation that is, occupations are supposed to be entirely within a dwelling unit. This clearly is not. And I think we need to look at the bigger picture and the impact that we'd set a precedent by allowing this.
Thank you. Further questions or comments from council? Seeing none, we'll then open to public. It is a public meeting. We have a number of people online. We have some people in our gallery. So I'll ask you that if you are listening on a computer, tablet, or smartphone, please use the raised hand icon if you'd like to speak. And if you have called into the meeting using a telephone, use *9 as your way of raising your hand. And questions will be taken in that order between our upper gallery and the online piece. I'm reminding you that this is a public meeting about a change of a temporary zoning bylaw. It isn't the value of swimming lessons, although that in itself was what brought it to us. But now it is about whether we keep our zoning bylaw or add a temporary use in some cases. So try and keep your questions and your comments to that amount, please. And I'll go first to the upper end. Do I have someone? Yep. Please just give us your name and address.
Thank you, Your Worship. I am Aaron Hunter. I live at 63 Florist Street. In the many years that I've known you, I've called you many things, but
Yeah, you've
this
called
is
me.
the first time
Never
I've called you Your Worship
before. So
I can be long-winded at times. It's been a long night, so I'm going to try and keep it short if I can. One of the subjects that came up a lot during the first section of this meeting when they were talking about the 5-story building and all that kind of stuff was the safety of the children. One of the things I love about our community is that no matter how much we disagree about this or that, all of us want to take care of the children. And as our community grows, like was discussed in the first part of the meeting, more families are going to come in, more tools are going to be needed to keep our children safe, and the diversity of those children is going to increase, which means different needs. And you're right, the Y does have a great program. JC's does have a great program. The thing with Joy is that because she is operating a smaller business, a smaller group, I've personally witnessed her helping some of those children who do have a diverse need, who have issues regulating themselves. And Joy is able to bring them to a calm. Joy is able to help them have successes. And if you can have success around water safety, as a community, we have mourned together. And almost every summer, there is someone who dies because of either a lapse, a lack, or an ignorance of water safety. And I understand that we're talking about noise. I would argue that the neighborhood that Joy lives in is near the St. Anne's Fair. It's near the Y who has its day camps. It's near the high school that runs their football practices, their track meets, all the kind of stuff. It's a lively neighborhood. It's a neighborhood that is alive with our community. So I would implore the council that when you make the amendments, keep that in mind. Keep our children safe. Thank you.
thank you, Aaron. And it's great to see you. Further questions or comments? I have nobody with a hand up on the computer. So if there's another comment from upstairs, I'll certainly take it. Name and address, please, and then your comments.
Amaya Dottie. I live at 21 Phillip Street. Sorry. Good afternoon. My name is Amaya Dottie, and the woman standing before you today is my Nana, Joy Dottie. Throughout my elementary and high school years, I was constantly asked by teachers, friends, and community members, are you related to Joy Dottie? And when I proudly said yes, their faces would light up. They would tell me how she taught them to swim or how their children and now even their grandchildren learned from her. That's when I began to understand something powerful, that my Nana hasn't just been teaching swimming lessons, she has been shaping generations. In Ontario, drowning remains a very real and very preventable tragedy. Across Canada, 400 to 500 people lose their lives to drowning every single year. Behind every 400 to 500 people is a family whose life changed forever. And this is why my family's work matters. For over 50 years, Joy Dottie has been teaching one of the most important life skills a person can learn in a community surrounded by water. She teaches children who are afraid, adults who never had the opportunity, and families who just want their loved ones to come home safely. Today, I'm not just speaking as her granddaughter, I'm speaking as a swim instructor and mother myself, who has witnessed firsthand the impact she has had on this community. Generations know her name because generations have trusted her with their safety. I ask you to recognize the value of that work and to support programs that ensure these life-saving lessons continue for future generations. My grandmother's legacy is measured not in awards or recognition, but the countless people who are alive today because someone like her devoted their life to teach them how to swim. As for myself, I can proudly say that there is simply no better feeling than watching someone get in the water, nervous and afraid, to getting out with confidence in themselves. And I know my Nana has felt that same way for 50 years. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to remind those at home on their computer, on their phones and stuff. I see no hands up there, so that's okay, because we've still got somebody at the microphone in here. Please go ahead. Name and address, please.
Julie Baker, and my address is 41856 North Street. So I'm just going to read the letter that I wrote in support of Joy to our city council members here. My husband and I are writing in support of Joy Dottie and Baldwin Backyard Pools. Joy has communicated that there's been a noise complaint which threatens her ability to continue with backyard lessons in her private residential pool. She's an institution in St. Thomas and has been participating in water education and swimming lessons for nearly 50 years. Many generations of families, as well as many others, have benefited from her expertise, experience, and passion for teaching swimming lessons and water safety. Not only is Joy an expert in her craft, but she's also immensely kind to her young and adult students. If noise is the complaint, it seems as though it would be difficult to ascertain whether the noise is coming from the 2 daily children's summer day camps hosted within walking distance of her home, 2 schoolyards, or for that matter, anyone's private backyards. Those who have taken part in her lessons can also clearly articulate her respect and desire to maintain relationships with her neighbors and neighboring businesses. At the beginning of each session, Joy provides each family with written communication that reviews her expectations for parking, which has been pre-negotiated with Central Elgin, I believe. I don't know, Joy can correct me on that after. Ensuring that people are not parking on the street or at neighboring businesses. She has signage in her backyard regarding maintaining respectful noise levels as well. Joy enforces these rules and communicates them clearly. We can personally say that our son, who's here tonight, has benefited from Joy's lessons. He went from a child fearful of water to a competent, shallow and deep water swimmer and treader. In addition to this, this is the only course that we have ever taken that has included and reviewed water safety. It goes without saying that this should be commended given the number of fatal drownings just in our area over the last couple of years. As a result of the local hospital pool closing, accessible, affordable, local options for swimming lessons with reasonable class sizes and offered at times that work are dwindling. The lack of options makes it difficult for families to access this essential skill training for our children and for adults. I would also like to add that most of the current options for swimming lessons do not accommodate smaller class sizes for children who require this related to accessibility issues. We're urging you to please consider allowing Joy to continue this vital training. Very few things in life are black and white, and we ask you to weigh a couple of dissatisfied neighbors over the generational impact to our community. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to ask those at home on your phones and computers, if you'd like to speak, please put your hand up. And other than that, I'll go to, if there's another comment upstairs. But again, I kind of want to remind, this isn't about swimming, this is about a zoning change. So I'd love to hear your thoughts about what we should do as a council about being able to regulate the businesses people run in their homes. So please, if you can help me with that a little, I'll take it.
My name is Alina Dottie. I live at 16 Mary Street.
Sorry, I can't hear you. Could
Yeah,
you
you're gonna have to,
step a little closer to the mic?
yeah,
Can you hear me now?
a little better.
Okay. My name's Alina Dottie. I live at 16 Mary Street. I've worked in and out with Joy for quite a few years now, and I've also watched her with the children, and she is also very good with noise complaints and like keeping things control, obviously. With the zoning thing, I understand that you need to be aware of other people around you. It's a law, right? I don't agree with the fact that she can't have that business in her backyard, as it is beneficial for other people. She's helped all ages of people around the city and other places. People will drive from different areas to come to her. As for like, it's summertime, right? Everybody's going to be outside. It's going to be loud. Like, I feel like having a zoning bylaw like that, it's putting a pin on somebody that's impacting other people around. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Super. Thank you for sharing with us. But council, again, anybody with hands anytime, but we'll, if we have no further people at the microphone and nobody online putting up their hand, then I'm going to suggest that there's been a fair opportunity to express views. If there are no further questions, please be advised that any person wishing further information on the actions of council regarding the passing of a bylaw for this proposed amendment should email customer service at customerservice@stthomas.ca, indicating which public meeting, this one is 21 Phillip Street, obviously, and let us know your name and address. If you don't have access to a computer and you're on a phone or not, you can always call in to customer service at 519-631-1680, extension 0, and provide the same information. As we stated at the beginning, we will not be making a council decision tonight. We're collecting information so that great teams like Michelle's can come back to us with what the thought can be on how we change to a temporary zoning bylaw. The council has asked for us to see if that can be done rather than have a blanket bylaw across our city. This public meeting is now concluded.